All right, EJ. We finally had our first barbecue in Kansas City. We got our naps in. We got hydrated, showered. Well, one of us did.
We'll let you decide who that might be.
We got through the mock draft stream this morning. That was a 3-hour behemoth. We got
It was fun.
2 hours here doing Q&A. We got a couple more hours down at KC Beer Co.
And then, as many hours as we can write draft prospects for,
Yeah, it's draft week. It's draft week. Welcome, everybody who's here already. We have questions about to be pouring in. But first things first. Best meat in the platter?
Oh, probably the burn ends. Burn ends were, there was
the pulled pork with the
pulled
spicy
pork with
sweet
the sauce,
man.
the handmade sausage, burn ends, everything on the platter was really good. The smoked chicken nuggets or chicken tenders,
dude, they're ridiculous.
The best, small breaded chicken thing I've ever had in my whole life. And I've had a lot of small breaded chicken.
And this was a DoorDash barbecue platter that was in somebody's car for 20 minutes.
And it was still
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I never had real KC barbecue before. And I don't even know if locals would consider that,
I'd say Char Bar is on the list for real KC barbecue, for sure.
That shit was ridiculous.
It was delicious, and there will be more, and couldn't be happier that it is the food of the native food of the host city of the NFL draft, because man, does it fit with our taste. It's one of the first thing we ever ate together was a platter of barbecue.
I think it was the first thing we ever
ate. It was the first thing. And I was like, "Are you hungry?" And you're like, "Yeah." And we went out to some random barbecue place that had been recommended to you by a coach, so it's good. And we split a platter of barbecue, and bootleg was born. So who knows what's going to happen at the NFL draft, because we got bootleg barbecue all week.
Well, we went through my mock draft this morning over on the Film Room channel. Some picks that you expected, some maybe that you didn't.
Definitely some I didn't, for sure.
Anything that you vehemently disagreed with?
When you get to go through the reasoning, which is one of the reasons I really like doing it in this format, is because we can have some nuance. We can have some discussion about why or what you see, or look, I know he's not going to go this high, but this is why I want him there. And this is why I think he's a perfect fit. Once you go through all that, nothing I disagree with, outwardly. You can say, oh, maybe a different corner, different position. Again, it's not, you lay at the top. It's not a predictive, this is going to happen. This is a mix of what I would do and what I think some teams are going to do. So I think it's all educational. It was a fun discussion. We had a ton of participation. We had a lot of folks watching along, which is not surprising. It's one of your biggest pieces of content every year. And I don't know, I thought it was a lot of fun. And we get to do another couple hours of it now, and then another couple hours of it at a bar, and then get to do it for 3 straight days. So it's all good.
We had our first question roll in from Andrew Elliott. Thank you, Andrew, for $2.
Partnership.
I'll get to that right after this.
Nice.
Thoughts on Jarek Bernard, Converse, corner from LSU? I'll let you lead off on that, because I have not got to him yet.
Yeah, super athletic, not surprising being an LSU football player. They have a type. Yeah. I thought I liked his size. I liked his play demeanor. I think he's got a narrow fit, which is probably why you're not hearing his name a lot. He's going to be more, I think, system dependent earlier in his career than some of the other corners who might have multiple roles that they can play right out of the box. I'm sure, I don't have any information, I am sure there are some DB coaches around the league who he is high on their list, because they're looking at him saying, he's got the traits I need to run my system. Absolutely will get drafted. I would say anytime from about mid-4th on starts to feel like value to me, because he's got great tools. Yeah, that's going to be one. That's going to be like a day 3 pick. I'd say it's like a classic day 3 pick. People who really care and think, oh, where does this guy fit? Does he have any, skills? Can he contribute quickly? Like, if he lands in the right spot, I don't think he'll be a starter right away, but I think he could eventually be a number 2 starter. He has that kind of ability.
See, that's how I know this DB class is deep, is because I went through like 50 guys. 50.
Yep.
and that still wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And we're typically looking at DB classes. I was like, because after I got to the 50 mark, I was like, how many of these guys are even going to get drafted?
Yeah.
And I was looking at like average number of DBs that go.
Yeah.
And it's anywhere from 48 to 55 a year.
And you said
getting
DBs.
drafted, let alone the UDFAs. There's like 80 DBs that enter the NFL every year. I was like, I can't watch 80 DBs. I'll go insane.
Because you know what you got to do then? You got to watch 80 receivers.
I know.
And
it's just too many.
It's a lot. Very talented guy. I don't want to say slip through the cracks. I want to say it's just a fact this year. We taught it in one of our very earliest streams right after the Shrine Bowl in terms of where this class was deepest position-wise. DB was on there. Really turns out, I think, to be a little bit more EB than DB. Safety doesn't feel as deep to me as corner does. Corner feels like ridiculous.
I guess it depends on how you qualify a lot of like the nickel, maybe safety, you know.
Yeah, no, certainly getting more towards positionless DBs, but it's not that, you know, our Converse is a bad player. He's not. He's a good player, but he's in line behind, I don't know, 35-ish other corners, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's not because he's bad. It's because there's a lot of good corners in this class.
Quick note before we get to our next question. This is the most comfortable hoodie I've ever had on in my life. I just got it yesterday because we launched a new partnership, as you can see down the ticker below, with Homage. Is it Homage?
It's Homage.
I want to make sure I didn't mess that up.
No, they print out. It's hard for me because I say homage. For the word, I say homage, the film reference. But they prefer the more Americanized saying, which is Homage, clothing company out of Ohio, who we've launched a partnership with. We're going to be wearing their gear throughout the draft at events around KC. This too is uber soft. Love it. And they were nice enough to send us some gear for the draft, and also buy clothing from them. It helps support Bootleg.
Yeah, we get a share of every single sale using our description below or the one that's in the ticker. If you copy that link and use it, anything you buy from them, they have officially licensed NFL gear from every single team, and it's all really, 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 really comfortable.
Yeah, they've got modern stuff. They've got video game stuff back from NFL Blitz. They've got retro stuff. Anything you might want for your team, throwback uniforms, hoodies. There's crossover stuff between NFL and Grateful Dead for different teams, just all kinds of great stuff. So if you want some fresh NFL gear, if your stuff's feeling a little bit faded, it's got some holes in it, head over to Homage, grab some clothing, support Bootleg. You won't be sorry. This stuff's really, really comfortable.
I just threw the link in chat for those of you who are interested in at least browsing around and seeing what you like. Next question, Donovan for $50. Thank you, Donovan. Thank you for paying for our barbecue that we just had, essentially. Really, really, really appreciate this. You guys produce the best football content on YouTube. Thanks for everything you do. If Brett's mock is correct and Jack Campbell falls out of the first round, is he a real possibility for the Texans at 33? Yes, absolutely he is. Not that they don't have some young, talented linebackers that I really like, but Jack Campbell as a Mike linebacker in that defense, I think he's not Fred Warner, but it would give them kind of a new build around, and that defense under D'Amico when he was not surprising, he's a former Mike linebacker himself, but not surprisingly, in San Francisco, they really built that defense around what Fred Warner was capable of, and they leaned a lot on Fred. That's why they led the league in cover 2 by far in the second halves of games when they would get kind of a lead, and then they're like, all right, we're just going to play cover 2 because we can, and there's nothing you can do about it because they have Fred, super rangy, ultra instinctive, and if they run against a 2 safety look, again, Fred kind of gives you an advantage. Even if you're even numbers in the box, he was still going to be Fred and make a play. I'm not saying that Jack Campbell's Fred Warner, because very few linebackers are Fred Warner, but in terms of getting just this big hulking destroyer that if you want to play a 2 high safety structure, he can kind of even up the math for get off a block he's kind of the guy in this class to do that. And oh, by the way, he's super athletic and can get depth in his drops and, impact the pass game too. We saw the interception he had against CJ Stroud as a hook dropper. So yeah, at 33, he would make sense. I think it's an appropriate value for him. I think he's one of the 32 best players in this class. He just will probably fall out of the first round because of the position he plays. Most teams, I don't think, value Mike like that. D'Amico Ryans probably does.
Yeah, if you want more scoop on Jack Campbell and we're done with this stream, head over to the channel. Check out the latest pod we just dropped with Matt Bowen, unnoted Hawkeye alum himself. We talked about Jack Campbell and a lot of his traits. We're going to keep bringing up names of great linebackers. We're not saying he's those great linebackers, but he's Urlacher's size, right? He's 6'5", 250. That's a rare size for a linebacker anymore. Lots of guys playing 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", 220, even down to 218, some of these guys. So to see a guy fully 6'4", 6'5", 250 who can run like that, who can play very well forward, we see that all the time, but also in reverse, getting depth and drops, good hands. I'd say is a value for any team from that point on in the draft. And really, he's just going to be kind of a casualty of whichever run occurs, whether it's a run on tackles, a run on quarterbacks. Any of those combinations are going to push positions like tight end, inside linebacker, running back down the board, and they're going to be available for teams as second-round values.
I really think it's going to be the tackle run that is the expected tackle run that's going to be the story of the first round, because for a long time, we thought there was going to be a run on tight ends. We thought 4 could go in the first round. It's not going to happen.
I never thought.
I thought it was possible.
No, I never did.
But it's not. It's not
But,
going to.
no,
Like edge.
Tackle's the thing.
There's going to be more tackles than edges. There's going to be like maybe 3 receivers. Maybe. I can't find a home for Will Levis, so I don't know if there's 4 quarterbacks going. Like tackle's going to be impeding a lot of other positions, linebacker included. I'd be very surprised if a linebacker goes in the first round at this point.
Yeah, and it happens every year. Every unexpected pick that you get between, say, 15 and 32, typically in a typical draft, this year it's 31. Every one of those that people didn't have mocked in the first or didn't think would go or is a surprise fit pushes one of those players who was absolutely a first round lock for the last 4 months further down. And some of them it will push out of the first round. It happens every year. There's a lot of flux from, I would say, really about 18 to 32 in a given year. And if you go back and look at any draft, pick a year, go back, look at the draft and just read the picks from like 22 to 32 and go, oh man, nobody thought that guy was a first rounder before. And it happens every year. So
next question, Guy with no vowels for $5. Thank you, Guy. So excited to be here for all of my 3rd year. Welcome back. Question, Stone Forsyth 2 years ago, Malik Willis last year. Who's the player with first round buzz who drops big? I would even amend that question as who's the player that Brett loves in the first round who drops big? I guess just based on my mock this morning, Corey Trice was kind of the most off the wall pick, but I don't think he would even drop that far in the second round. He's not going as late as Stone Forsyth or Malik Willis, right? But I would probably say, like, who's the one that, in terms of where I mock them versus where they actually get picked, what's the biggest difference? Probably Corey Trice, because I put him at 25, and I'd be even I who love him would be surprised if he went at 25.
Yeah, if he's a top 50 player when it all shakes out, just again, not because of his ability, but because of the depth of this cornerback class. If he was that skilled and the top of this class was a little bit light, I would feel really confident that, yes, teams have found him and he's going to slide up. But, like, are you going to take him over Deonte Banks?
No, I wouldn't even do that.
Right. Yeah. So there's a line of guys in front of him that are really talented that you're kind of, if you're a team picking cornerback, you're going to look and say, yeah, we love Corey Trice, but there's these 3 other guys that are still on the board. We either wait around and see if Corey's still around, or we pick one of these guys now, cross cornerback off our board and move on to the next one. So he could get caught a little bit in there. Is he a top 50 player in this draft by talent? I would say borderline. He's right there. He's about there overall. Would I be surprised if he didn't go in that range? A little, but not terribly. Would I be really surprised if he didn't go in the next 25 picks? Yes.
That's where you start to get into the, okay, what's going on?
Yeah. If we got to 75 and Corey Trice is still on the board, I would be wondering what we heard and others heard about how much the league liked him and if there was something else going on, medical red flag or something we hadn't seen.
John Vogel for $2. Thank you, John. Thoughts on Clark Phillips III? I really, really like Clark Phillips. I think he's got great burst out of transitions, is fantastic. His ball skills, his instincts reminds me a lot of Brandon Boykin, right? The ex-Georgia DB.
Yeah.
Ended up being a nickel for a few years before injuries kind of knocked his career short. But, similar kind of skill set. Clark, I think they're going to try whatever his future team is. I think they're going to try him outside first just to see. He is a smaller guy. If it doesn't work out, I still see him being a very good coverage nickel, I guess is the best way to put it, because he's not super great against the run. He's not a great tackler. I don't think he'll bring the full nickel skill set to the table. You kind of have to protect him against the run game. But in terms of who can I put inside in the slot and stop a receiver that has a two-way go in space, Clark Phillips is one of the guys I'm very confident in being able to do that because of his quickness, his fluidity, his burst and ball skills and all that kind of stuff. Not super big, not super fast, but I think that the league.
Yeah, if you're going purely off athletic testing, you're not going to love Clark Phillips. If you're going purely off tape, it's hard not to love Clark Phillips. He was one of the guys going into this class. We all have these guys. You and I don't watch tape of sophomores for the most part. If they flash, we see them, but we don't concentrate on underclassmen for the most part. They're not eligible, and there's hundreds of guys that are, and we concentrate on that. There's a few every year. There's 10 or 15 that you've seen that you know. We all knew about Jalen Carter. We all knew about Olufashano, even though he went back. Like, there are guys that we know about. Phillips was one of the guys I knew about coming in this draft and was excited about, played on a very physical Utah defense, and has so many highlight plays against the pass, has some of the highest quality interceptions in this class. We can talk about a guy earning an interception as opposed to just can of corn, caught it, happened to be in the right place.
Emmanuel Forbes.
Clark Phillips has a lot of those and plays better than his testing times. So everybody knew that I like Clark Phillips. And when he had an average combine, everybody's like, ooh, EJ, he sucks. He's slow. And I was like, no, he doesn't suck. He ran poorly. Absolutely. I give you that. Not awesome against the run. Also true. Even though he's physically very well built, he's on the shorter side, but he's solid. Solid doesn't mean you play the run well.
Yeah. Just because you hit the gym.
Yeah, doesn't play the run necessarily well, but I like your idea of coverage nickel, is really devastating in coverage, can take away that option pretty completely, almost whoever it is. Do you want to put him on a big slot burner? Like if somebody decides, we're going to draft Jalen Hyatt and slide him inside.
Don't feel good about that.
Not something you want to do, but a typical slot receiver who's going to be working, 15-yard depth and in, you put Clark Phillips on him, they're going to get like 2 looks, maybe a catch, 8-9 yards for the game. Like that's what they're getting. He's going to lock them down.
Hayden Bowman for $2. Thank you, Hayden. What separates Zay from JSN for you guys? I don't even know if I'd use the word separate because it's a 1A, 1B thing for me.
Yeah, they're very similarly graded.
It's just they're different, right? JSN, I think if I want a guy to be an assassin inside, it's JSN. If I want a guy who I think can line up and play X and do a bunch of X receiver stuff in a Stephon Diggs mold, beating press, but not just beating press, but like stacking on a guy, accelerating away from him. I think JSN within 10 to 15 yards, just as bursty as Zay. But I think Zay's third gear after that is what I think makes him a more enticing outside receiver prospect. So I think it's, what are you looking for? Because there are teams that have outside guys, but they don't have any reliable targets inside. Somebody who can really do damage over the middle. And that's where JSN comes in. And there's some teams where it's like, yeah, we got inside guys. We don't have any outside speed. So it just depends on what you're looking for. And I think different teams are going to have different answers for that. But I think generally outside speed is going to be the more coveted trait, which is why I have Zay at 1A and JSN at 1B. But like they're both going in the top 15, right? So I don't even know if the word separate is the right word for it.
Yeah, separate sets me off a little bit because they're so close. They are different, but it's like saying, what do you like better, apples or oranges? They're both fruits, right? Well, they're both good and they both have qualities you like, but they're different. And you and I see JSN a little bit differently. I don't see him set up, just knocked into the slot role. I think he can play outside. He did play slot. I do not see him as an alpha wideout, right? My alpha wideout is the guy all the time. The Stephon Diggs is a perfect example. I don't see him as Stephon Diggs. Do I see him as an outside guy, as a number 2? I think he's fully capable in that role. And I think we've seen lots of players like that in the NFL that he could sort of emulate or replicate the production of. So I think he has inside-outside flexibility. I like that. Got a little bit more size than Zay does. Zay's more dynamic further. They're both really good in the short zone. I think they're both really good in the medium zone in slightly different ways. In the deeper zone, I want Zay because he can carry speed deeper down the field. He had more deep reception or more deep air yard receptions, whereas JSN had more medium receptions. He turned in to deep receptions with yak yards because he's fantastic at spinning out of coverage and grabbing an extra 15 yards. And suddenly it's a 35-yard gain on a 15-yard pass.
Yeah.
So 2 different flavors, 2 great receivers, both receivers I would want on my team. Ideally, I'd love to put them together. Right. It's not going to happen because any team's going to spend that much capital up high on 2 receivers. But, if I'm a wide receivers coach, I'm looking at those 2 guys. I see them as complementary skill sets and both really vicious. It would be a tough cover if you had JSN on one side and Zay on the other.
Curtis Rogers for $5. Thank you, Curtis. Reports coming out of D-Hop Ravens trade. I have not been on Twitter in the last hour.
No, me neither.
That's interesting. D-Hop to Ravens trade finalizing. Well, I know the Ravens were in on him, and I know that the Chiefs and the Bills were in on him.
Yep.
I knew he was one of these AFC teams was going to get him. I didn't know which one.
Yeah.
So if that report is true, that's really fascinating. What kind of compensation do you think would be sent over? I assume Arizona eats a lot of the cap. Arizona from the start has not wanted to eat any more money on that D-Hop deal than they absolutely had to, because they're already taking, just with the way the contract is structured, like a dead money if he's traded, they're already taking a pretty big hit.
Yeah.
So from my understanding, and this was from like 2 months ago, they didn't want to eat any more salary because they already felt like they were taking a hit.
Yep.
And if they were going to be eating even more money, they were going to make you pay a higher price for it. So I am very curious to see what the compensation is. Like just a straight up Hopkins, I was like, I'll probably get a 4th. If they're eating a lot more money to make it easier for Baltimore, now I think maybe a 3rd. But that's about as far as I'll go.
Yeah, I think 3rd's probably max. It'll be fascinating to see if it finalizes, because until it's done, until the ink's dry, it's not done. If it finalizes and comes through, it makes a very interesting receiver core for the Ravens.
I mean, Odell, D-Hop, Bateman, Dev Duve.
Yeah, it's a fascinating array of weapons that they haven't had to this point. I think that's safe to say. And it'll be really interesting to see how the compensation works out. He does have a big deal. The money's got to go somewhere. Arizona wants all that money to rebuild. But I don't think if they get a 3rd out of him, I would be just as impressed as Green Bay pulling of basically 2 firsts for Rodgers.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. The 3rd at the absolute most. Connor for £10. Thank you, Connor. As a Raiders fan, this is the most terrifying day of the year.
You're not alone. There are other fans.
Chiefs would be the most terrifying day of the year.
No, I think all fans who study the NFL draft, I certainly have had this curve and continue to go through it. It's one of those things, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And the scareder you can get about potential outcomes, knowing how that impacts a team or doesn't, especially your own team when you add in the emotion of fandom. It can be very nerve-wracking. I have a lot of people reaching out to me about Jalen Carter's fit with the Bears, and they're like, "Are you nervous?" And I'm like, "Yeah, a little, for sure." I'm not worried about Jalen Carter, the player. Am I worried about the fact whether or not Jalen Carter will be available on the field? Sure. If you're going to spend a top 10 pick, you want that guy to be on the field and contributing. I know when he's on the field, he can contribute. I have no worries about that, but there's always that question of, does that add an air of nervousness to the proceedings? Yep, sure does.
I'm really fascinated in general by the Ravens, or not the Raiders, because it just feels like for so long the roster's been almost.
I would agree.
Like almost there.
Yeah,
like
good
on
players
paper, it should work better than it does, and it's been that
almost
way
every year,
at least four straight years.
Yeah. Well, they had those hot starts and then the absolute cooling in the second half of the season for a couple of years. And then, they started poorly, had everything in the world go on, and then went on a run.
I can't remember the last time they put it together for 17 weeks. I really can't.
No. It's been a long time. We said this morning on your mock draft stream, they need hits. Yeah. Like multiple hits. They don't have to be home runs. They don't even necessarily have to be triples. If they came out of this draft with like 3 to 4 solid doubles, that's what they need to like build that base and ensure that if stars go down, they've still got options. If, things change throughout the middle of the season in terms of how they have to adapt as an offense or a defense, that they've got other pitches to go to. And right now, they feel pretty good at the top, and then as soon as you get away from that with injuries, ooh.
They might have set a record for like fastest team to not have anybody left from a draft class. It was like 2 years. And there was nobody left.
People say the draft doesn't matter. People say the draft is a crapshoot, right? It's all luck, blah, blah. No. The draft matters, and the way you know the draft matters is when you bomb out on a draft at the level that they did. You're stuck. You're in a trough. Yeah. You need to rebuild. The draft does matter. You need to be at least okay at the draft. And if you aren't, especially for a period of years, we saw it in the Lions too, before they had their power transition to Brad Holmes and Campbell. For years, they just pour and pour and pour and pour.
You just got to get 50%. Yeah. That's it, man.
Yeah. If you can do that, you're doing really well. And if you don't do that, you're in big trouble.
Lucas Frederick for $5. Thank you, Lucas. What's the Packers' perfect top 2 or 3 rounds without taking a skill position player at 13? I would say insert your favorite tackle at 13. Because I don't think Bakhtiari's on the team past this season. So whatever your favorite tackle is, doesn't even matter who. Because Zach Tom can play either side, right? So it's just whoever you like best. And then without taking a skill position player, see, that's a hard one. Because I kind of I have them, in pen receiver second round. I don't know which one, but.
Right. Receiver help. It just says receiver help.
And their top tight end right now is Josiah DeGuara.
Yeah, tight end is I don't even want to say sneaky need for them. Tight end is a glaring need for them. We both like Josiah DeGuara, but as a third tight end, H-back, special teams contributor, outplaying his draft status guy. That was Josiah DeGuara for us. So we were, excited when he got drafted, thought he had potential. Is he a starting, high production tight end for a young quarterback who typically young quarterbacks like the safety blanking of having a very reliable tight end? Is he that guy? No. This is a loaded class for tight end. I would be, and look, I'm surprised every year by something the Packers do, either positively or negatively. If they came out of this draft without a tight end as a selection, period, I would be agape.
Well, if I'm putting together three picks back to back without taking a skill position player, which seems impossible for them, just considering their needs. Again, it's insert your favorite tackle, Jartavius Martin in the second round, because they sure love hybrid safety nickel types. And then let's see, what's like a third, like Gerard Clark, maybe.
Just an absolute stump of a run plugger.
Just another defensive lineman. Again, if they actually did that, I would be sick if I was a Packers fan, because I'm like, give Jordan Love a chance, please.
Yeah,
I don't.
What kind of gift basket would we send Marcus? Be like, sorry, man.
He would drop off the face of the earth, never to be seen again.
he would have a tough day with that. That's a heck of a stipulation, though. Great question. No skill position players. Made us think for sure.
Yeah. Jason Brown for $5. Thank you, Jason. Hey, have either of you heard of James Madison, running back, Keelan Black, or Syracuse linebacker Anwar Sparrow? Sparrow I had heard of. I didn't see how many. I watched a lot of Q's players. I don't think he was one of them.
No, I mean, I've seen him on tape, but I didn't watch him specifically. The way I watch players is some folks like you are able to watch a whole defense and pick out notes. I can't do that.
Yeah.
The most I can watch is two, and usually like on the same unit, like two linemen, two linebackers, two guys in the secondary. That's about the max I can do. I tend to focus. That's just the way my eyes work in my process. So I've seen him watching, other Syracuse defenders on tape, but I haven't focused on him. And the running back, nope.
Not eligible yet because he's a freshman or redshirt freshman. But all the Q's guys I watched, it was obviously Bergeron, Garrett Williams, the corner, who seems like he's going to be healthy by July, which is huge for him.
Yeah, he's already moving pretty well. He was doing ladder drills the other day on I don't know what TikTok video, whatever.
Sean Tucker, the running back, who we both love a lot, but the medical flags are serious.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Q's always has good dudes, but
it's funny. I did podcast, annual podcast I do with Bill Zimmerman, and Bill's a Syracuse alum. And
I didn't know that.
And we were talking about how he sees Syracuse players. He's like, I hate him. I'm always like uber hard on him. He's like Donovan McNabb. I was like, this guy's never going to be a starter. He's going to be a backup that's close. Right. He said, I'm always like really, really hard on him. And it's because, he sees what they do for the team. And look, Syracuse stumbled down the stretch and he was like, Sean Tucker wasn't making yards by himself. And I'm like, this line other than Bergeron wasn't helping him a lot. He's like, yeah, but he wasn't, breaking through tackle. I was like, okay, I get it.
It's like, do you know how hard it is to recruit Syracuse?
It's harder than it used to be, but they do have some good players. Yeah, we'll see that guy coming up for sure.
Hayden for $5. Thank you, Hayden. How's the food been since you've gotten to KC? Man, that barbecue.
Well, yeah, I was really the only food we've had in KC is that barbecue, because I got in midday yesterday and then had a run of things I needed to do and like got half a mini bagel at like 8:00 at night. And then this morning had a little bit of breakfast, like a half a bowl of cereal before we did your 3-hour live stream. And I was completely loopy at the end of it. And I was like, why? I was like, oh, because basically you didn't eat anything yesterday after breakfast and you haven't had anything today. So we ordered a big old tub of char bar for lunch in between that stream and this stream. And it was glorious.
It was turkey, ham, burnt ends, sausage,
ribs,
brisket,
smoked chicken tenders,
smoked chicken, like the nugget tender things, mac and cheese, a couple different types of slaw, beans.
Broccoli slaw that was delicious.
For 2 people. We ate, I don't know, half of it.
Yeah, maybe. We're going to be eating off that tub for the next 3 days, but it was glorious to your answer. And one of our buddies, Ken Swanson over at KCSN, who is local, said to all my friends coming to Kansas City, all barbecue's good. Like, you don't have to go to the spot. There's so many good spots. It's all pretty good. Just go get some barbecue and you'll be happy. And I thought that was great advice because, I know everybody, especially locals, are going to have their place.
Everybody keeps saying Q39.
Yeah, Q39 comes up a lot. Char Bar, Gates, Joe's. But I bet all killer.
It's like going to New York and saying, where's the best to get a bagel? It's like, I don't know, every street corner ever. Or like going to LA, it's like, where's the best place to get a hot dog? Every corner has like bacon wrap hot dogs, and they're all great.
Yeah,
you don't need to go to a special spot.
You just go eat one. So we've only had a little bit, like literally one lunch tub of KC food, just because we haven't eaten a ton. We've been working since we got here. But we're excited to go over to KC Beer Co. tonight. Certainly their beers, but they've got some authentic German pretzels we're looking forward to as well. Katie over there is going to hook us and everybody else that comes over up with some appetizers and beer specials. So looking forward to trying that flavor of KC and then as many more as we can throughout the week. But just like KC, great city. My first like bunch of time being here, like in KC, to be here. Gorgeous place. Food, great. People have been so far amazing. Really just really cool place.
It's like this interesting mix between if you've been to these two places, you might understand it. Charlotte and Chicago.
Okay.
But like they had a kid. That's Kansas City to me.
Yeah. Like, I can see it. We're doing draft comps for KC now.
It's a fun town. I like it.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Evan Kearney for 5. Thank you, Evan. Percentage chance Carter falls to Chicago, bear down. 90?
90 feels a little bit high for me. I think somebody might go up and snipe him. That's really
maybe Howie's like,
I 90 feels a little high for me for anything in the draft, just to be fair. It's not because it's Chicago or Carter or anything else. You say there's a 90% chance of something happening that somebody hasn't like flatly publicly announced. Feels a little high.
Would you give me 75?
I would give you 75. What I can say with even greater certainty than that is if Carter is still there at 9 and nobody blows Chicago away with an offer, which I don't expect them to do, they will pick him.
Yeah, and I don't really blame him for that. He's best player in the class.
I'm going to leave it up to them. It's their jobs, right? It is a high variance move.
Yeah.
But if it works, they need the role in the defense. We talked about this morning on your mock draft stream. Like that was the first big swing they attempted to take in free agency with Ogunjobi, and they didn't get it. They're still smarting from that. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
They know how important that role is in Eberflus's defense, and literally the best player in the draft might fall to them at 9. Like just connect the dots, folks.
Jordan Mercier for $2. Thank you, Jordan. What do you know that we don't to inspire AR-15 to Minnesota?
Good question.
How do I answer this?
Yeah, how do you answer this? I'm going to sit over here, and this is where I get popcorn. This is the get my popcorn gif.
To avoid angry texts, I will
abstain. Yeah, no, I mean, it makes a lot of sense on the outside in terms of known. Again, when you say high percentile, there are things that we get told that do happen, and there are things we get told that don't happen.
I would say it's a 5-to-1 ratio of things that we get told that will happen that happen versus the other 4 times where it's like it was gonna, but then this other thing triggered blah blah blah.
So we're not holding out on y'all. That's not the point. We're not insiders. We made this point very clear for different reasons, but it's not a job we want. This is not what we're aspiring to, and that's not why we post or don't post all this stuff. Like not our role here. We're not insiders. We're not breaking news. We do not, for the most part, have firsthand connected sources. So not our job, not our gig, not our circus. We get told a lot of things. And I think early on, I know I did, I like alluded to those things and then they didn't happen. Everybody was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, come on, man. You told me it's going to happen. And then you find out, oh, it was going to happen, but X other things happen. So now you just kind of wait. You try and take it all in, figure out what's real, what's smoke, see what happens. And then you kind of get a feeling for, oh, this source is pretty reliable. Like most of the things they say happen. They don't bring stuff up that's not going to happen. This source, a little while, not necessarily wrong or bad, but They're just jumping at every lead and saying, hey, all this is true. All this is going to happen. And of course,
and then there's the one guy where it's like, well, you just fucking lied to me. So
yeah, it depends on the source, of course. But no, it's not. I wouldn't say no. It makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
They got to get out of Cousins after a year.
Yeah.
Like if they hang with Cousins for more than 1 year, lots of other teams are doing it, right? Moving their quarterback along 1 year at a time, franchise tag, whatever. They can't do that anymore with Cousins. They already paid him a lot of money. He's not at an increasing returns portion of his career. You got to have a plan. And rookie quarterbacks' first years, no matter what they are difficult. So if you're going to lose your vested starting quarterback in a year, you better start now. They're most likely not going to get Bryce Young. Not necessarily sure they want CJ Stroud. The swing would be Richardson with potential, with a year to learn behind a guy like Kirk.
It's just a logical move.
Yeah. And a lot of other teams are like that too. Seattle's like that. Invested in Geno, but Geno's deal is effectively a year, maybe two. And, you know, they've been a rumored destination for Richardson as well for the exact same reasons. Bring him in, sit him behind an established starter who played exceptionally well last year in Geno, and then see if he's the guy to take you on the ride to the Super Bowl.
Steven Janabos? I'm going to go with Janabos.
Okay.
Let me know if I fucked that up, and I apologize if I did. For $5, thank you, Steven. Lots of rumors swirling around the Patriots trading up for a quarterback and moving on for Mac. Any thoughts on this? And if they do it, who would want? I have not heard anything legitimate about that at all.
I haven't heard anything legitimate. I've heard a lot about it.
Doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot about it. That, you know, they weren't sold on Mac and they were thinking about something. And again, if you're looking at recent history, the most reasonable parallel is Richardson, right? They'd be getting a young, healthy Cam as opposed to Cam at the end of his career when he was still ridiculously effective as a 1 year guy to come in. But you're hoping for the heights to reach are somewhere near Cam Newton's, you know, mediums, because he was a shooting star in the league and MVP. So
I did some digging and I asked a couple people about it and they were like, I have no idea where that's coming from. So we'll see, you know, because there's some
perceived tension, but I
guess
there's tension in every quarterback coach relationship. There is tension in every, you know, people might say on the surface it's great. It's not always great. You get in the room, you're going to argue about usage. You're going to argue about choices. And I think the longer you've been there, this happened with Russell Wilson, right? At the end of his Seattle tenure, the last 3 years he was there was tension, right? And he wanted the organization to go one direction and they wouldn't. And this is common in all those relationships. So it was pretty public last year. And, you know, somebody might have leveraged that perception and said, oh, there's a crack. They're going to do it. They're gonna
also, like, the main Patriots beat writers have stayed very quiet on it, which if they say nothing, that usually means like, it's probably not real, right?
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Jack Hunter for 10. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate you. Welcome back. Wait, how late is it for you, Jack? Jack, go to bed. Why are you awake? Loved all the draft content. You guys have killed it as per usual. Been wondering, who are some of the guys you think should have went back to college this year, as well as some of those who shouldn't? That's a fascinating question.
The shouldn't part is just as interesting. Well, one guy, given the tackle absolute run that we think is going to happen, is Olu Fashanu, who was the class before he decided to go back to Penn State for another year. If he'd come out, he'd be making millions of dollars tomorrow. Like he would be in the first. He'd be in the top half of the first round.
He would be a Raider at 7,
probably. So he's one that I'm never, and I've said this, and I'll continue to say probably for as long as I do this. I will never deride a young guy's choice to go back to school. Everybody's is individual. There are a million factors: personal, family, relationship with the school, all that. We don't know about all that, and we can't properly judge value on that. from an NFL perspective, yeah, strike while the iron's hot. If he had come out this year, he would have been a top 10 pick. And if you can do that, it's very hard to walk away from because it's guaranteed money. That's where the money is in the rookie wage scale. And he would have got a chunk of that for sure. Some other guys that came out that should have gone back.
Well, chat brought up Jared Verse not coming out, which in this edge class, like I kind of got it, but I still think he would have been a first round pick.
Yeah. Strange as it is, Michael Penix from UW. Yeah. I know he started his career at Indiana, ended up transferring, being at UW, having his best year ever under their new coach who came from Fresno State, and decided to go for, I think it's his 7th year in college.
It's at least 6.
Yeah, I think it's his 7th year in college. Could be 6th. Was surprising to me because, again, he had shown progression. Was he going to be a top quarterback in this draft? Never. Was he going to be a solid competition for that, Hendon Hooker second tier of quarterback? Like, he would have been in that mix. Some team probably would have spent at least a 3rd round pick on him. Is there going to be more? That's what he's betting on, is that if year 1 was that good, we're going to have even more. They've got a good young receiver for the Huskies next year. So he's thinking everything's going to line up. So many times it doesn't. So it was surprising to me, again, because he's going to catch all of the overaged strays in next year's draft process. He was one. Trying to think of other guys who came out and I was like, oh no.
Oh, came out and no. I don't know if Will Levis had any eligibility left, but
yeah, but that's so up and down.
I thought maybe he could have used another year.
I think he could have used it, but again, he's going to go, I think, as high as he was going to go. Again, he would have gone higher last year, more like Olu, right? If he'd come out after his previous season, he would have gone certainly in that quarterback class, probably 1.
Can I throw one out at you that I thought, and we were both hoping that he was going to come out, but he didn't. Which the reasons why he went back again made sense.
Sure.
Cam Ward, Washington State.
Yeah,
because he only had 1 year at Wazoo and he played amazingly well. Came out of Incarnate Word. I would imagine he's going to be the most hotly contested quarterback recruit for the All-Star circuit next year.
Yeah,
no idea where he's going to go, or even if he might end up being one of those guys that doesn't need to go. We'll see. But Cam Ward's really, really good.
Yeah, and then here's a fun one. Where would you put Slovis?
Do I have to?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like he's on his 3rd school in 3 years.
Yeah, I don't have any interest at all.
Hot and cold, and so I don't know which category he fits in, Jack. Should have come out a while ago when everybody still thought he was good. I'm not sure with that one, but fascinating question. And yeah, get some sleep, man. I mean, stay up because it's draft, but geez, it's late for you.
Alex Tienze for $5. Thank you, Alex. Apologize if I messed up. What pick at 10 or higher gives the Eagles the best chance to make it back to the Super Bowl? I want them to trade up for Carter. They could trade up for Carter, legitimately. Yep. Now, they already don't have a lot of picks.
Yeah, that's the part that's
I think
trouble.
It's more likely they go down than up because Howie's got to get some assets. But if they are in truly like fuck it mode, they could go up to 6. And I think Detroit would listen.
Detroit would listen. You talked about a corner going to Detroit, but Detroit's, I think, one of the second pivotal picks in the top 10 that could really take this draft a couple of different directions. I think the corner prospect that you brought up is about as chalky as it gets.
Christian Gonzalez. Yep.
Just a corner in general. Doesn't matter. I think, look, you traded away a former 1st round corner. You got a hole. There's good corners in this class. You've got the ability to pick one. That's pretty chalky.
Yeah.
If they do something else, and the something else could be picking an offensive lineman. Now they have a good, young, strong offensive line, but I heard 2 weeks ago, before all this offensive line surge talk, that Detroit was interested in alignment, offensive alignment, not defensive.
Well, I'm trying to think.
That was the first thing.
How
'cause I
many
was like,
years does Decker have on his deal?
and I thought, okay, I could see it doesn't seem like a move for a team that feels like it's just about to tip over into a shorter window with the way they've been building talent. But I was like, well, that's odd because everybody's been talking about other positions, right? At first it was quarterback, and then they're like, no, the one we've got was corner after the Okuda trade. And, you know, I think, or they could listen to a trade, right? Because they don't need anything. If they went from 6 to 10, they'd pick up even more assets and still get a very good player. And I think they're one of the teams that's uniquely positioned to do that. That would be okay for them personnel wise. Whereas other teams are like, don't trade out. You need the blue chip. And other teams like Arizona or Howie are like, go get picks, go get assets. We got to build, or, you know, we don't have very many. So they're one of those sort of linchpin teams in the top 10 with whichever way they go, whichever way that wind blows in Detroit, affect what happens underneath.
So since you brought it up, I looked at Taylor Decker's contract because obviously they're not replacing Penne, right?
Yep.
So he's in his age 30 season this year. He's through 2023. It's not a cuttable contract this year. Next year, which is the last year of the deal, is 2024. They save about $10 million. So I don't personally think there's a need to move on from Decker right now, but if they feel like money's getting tight and they want to get younger at that, and they want to set themselves up to already have it because they think they're going to be too good to get Olu or whoever, right?
Right. I won't be picking at 6 again. Let's put it that way.
But if the tackle run starts at 6, it's on.
That's why
it's on.
That's why I think it really is pivotal. And if they go through, I think there'll be a lot of GMs after that breathing a bit easier.
The
because
Steelers would shit themselves.
Right. They're just going to say, we didn't expect that. Either the Lions allowing someone to trade up and start the tackle run, or taking one themselves, sticking and picking and taking a tackle would be, you know, there would be a lot of scrambling going on because the tackle run would start right then.
Yeah.
And, you know, potentially the Steelers were thinking, we think they're thinking that they're safe at 8 to move up and get the first or second tackle.
They might not even get.
It would be the third. Yeah. It could possibly be the third because, you know,
Raiders could still take one. Yeah.
Raiders could take one. Or again, if everybody's like, wait, tackle run started. Hey, you want to move your pick? The Raiders are like, sure, we'll go down 10 spots and you get your tackle and we get more assets. They're amenable to that. They're not one player away. They don't have an apple of their eye, we don't think, like a quarterback or something that's irreplaceable, right? They could get a great corner down at, 13. So it would shake up the top of this draft in a really interesting way, depending on what Detroit does or doesn't do.
If there was a way for Christian Gonzalez to get to the Eagles at 10, that's it.
Oh, if they get one of if they get one of the top corners, that's just Howie being Howie. Because they were like, because look, when this process started, that was it. That was the chalk pick for the Eagles. Yeah. Both their corners are out of the building. They had veteran corners on mercenary contracts. They're gone. They get them both back on, again, shorter mercenary contracts. But that was the pick when we started, okay, we've got the order now. Everybody did their early mock drafts for Eagles up high. 10, it was corner. They're missing 2 corners. What are they going to do to replace that production? They go out and re-sign them both. Oh, that. Okay.
And they could still draft one.
Yeah.
Just because.
Because
why not?
Yeah.
Daniel Brown for $2. Thank you, Daniel. Who are the best run stoppers in this draft?
Ooh.
Position independent. I would say Mozzie Smith inside. I mean, Jalen Carter, obviously. Tyree is phenomenal.
Foskey's really good.
Foskey, Jack Campbell. Let me look at my.
You're going back in the defense.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, let me think.
Well, Isaiah Moore.
Oh, yeah.
From NC State, if you're talking about middle linebacker. He's a great run stopper in this draft, one of the best.
Brian Branch, technically.
Brian absolutely is very instinctive and just fires so quickly because he sees it more quickly than many of his contemporaries. So he's there. People are, he's slow. Mentally, he's very fast. Quan Martin as well is the same. Sidney Brown. I know we're talking about all the Illinois
All of
defensive
them.
backs. But if we're going back to safety, Sidney Brown is great. JL Skinner was a ton of fun. He's, injured, but Boise State safety is big and triggers fast.
As far as corners go,
Trey,
which one?
Dean.
Yes, 100%.
From Florida for run stopping is high on my list.
Trice. Deion Henley.
Henley, if
well, it depends on style. Like slashers.
If you're talking about outside, like shutting off stuff to the edges, I'll take Henley all day long. If you're running at him, I actually think he's a negative. He gets run out of the way.
25.
Yeah, he gets run out of the way if he gets engaged. So it's kind of a hot and cold thing. You want to run away from that guy? Good luck.
Yeah. Gervin Dexter.
Love him. And specifically for his run stopping, showed better athleticism at the combine, I think, than maybe tape and kind of a guy like Keanu Benton that was like, oh, he moves better at his size than I thought he would for an interior guy. But Gervon Dexter starts with run size 335.
He's got a lot of Eric Armstead to him in terms of build and snap in his hands.
Yeah.
Different pass rushers, but
not as much run stopping out of him, but he starts with run stopping and it's good.
Yeah.
It's really good. Nesta Jade Silvera from Arizona State.
Yeah, just
I like him.
Ball of fire.
Yeah.
Love him.
Oh, you mentioned him earlier. Gerard Clark.
Mm-hmm.
And then Coburn from Texas.
DeAndre Coburn, yeah.
Coburn is just he's not much on pass rush.
Moro Ojomo, his teammate too. There's a lot of guys that stop the run in this class.
I think run stoppers typically are a little bit easier to find. There's so many good pass rushers that we tend to forget about run stopping this because usually run stopping is what we go back to. Like, well, he's good and he can set the edge. Can he pass rush?
Yeah.
And so we end up saying that a lot. This cycle, it feels like we haven't talked about run stoppers a lot because we're talking about all these guys that can rush the passer.
Or at least contribute.
Yeah.
Ryan Prott for 220 Canadian. Thank you, Ryan. Thoughts about what the Steelers should do at 32?
I think they should cede the pick back to the Bears.
It's like, can you resist it? No,
I can't.
I think they're going to use it to trade up for a tackle. I think they need to.
Probably.
So and it's like, does that count?
For a lot of, for a long time, they were talking about going 2-9. Going back to the Bears and giving them the pick back. That was very popular for about a 2.5-3 week stretch in the draft cycle. It almost felt like Jock. We talked about it being an open secret. Now it feels like they've probably moved up at least one pick higher to Atlanta, if not 2 picks higher to Las Vegas.
But they'll still need 32 to
get
it
32
done.
Is going to one of those teams, just not back to the Bears. So honestly, I think that's the most, like, if I had to put money on what 32 was going to be used for, a player selection or draft capital to move up to get a different player, I would put it in draft capital to move up.
Which, if you're trading Chase Claypool for a left tackle, fine. It's great.
In their mind, absolutely fine, especially given the fact that they can seemingly pick receivers out of the air and they're all good.
Yeah. John Griffin for $20. Thank you, John. Appreciate you very much. Thank you for supporting the show. Great respect to the grind you guys have been putting in. Have either of you seen Shepherd tackle Joey Fisher? Both him and Bajent have very interesting backgrounds, and I would love to see 2 players drafted from Shepherd. You know what's funny? I watched Bajent, but I didn't know there was any other Shepherd players I should pay attention to.
No, I didn't watch the tackle either. I watched Bajent. Is he going to get drafted?
7th, maybe. Yeah, probably.
I want to say probably, but it's probably maybe.
He's so outrageously productive. I have to think somebody's going to be like, let's see what's there.
Yeah, right? It feels like there are those coaches that love quarterbacks like that. Yeah, because like Andy Reid used to take one every year in the
Sean Payton,
6th or 7th, right? Like, come on down, come to training camp. Let's see what can happen here. They weren't usually right, but it didn't stop them from doing it. And, not surprisingly, certainly Reid came from the Ron Wolf school, and Ron Wolf famously was, you pick a quarterback every year.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you pick them, you pick a quarterback every year, because if any of them hit, it's the highest players lottery ticket you can have.
Yeah. And I kind of want to go back and now watch the Shepherd tackle tonight, and I'll just pull up all the Bajent film. And
you can do it right after you do all your position write-ups.
I know.
Patrons.
I know. I got to do that first. We will get those out. tonight/tomorrow morning.
We got three more out last night.
We did. We got all defense done. I just got to finish the write-ups for offense. That's all.
I have 4 left. I have inside, interior offensive line, OT, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. They're all ordered.
Yeah.
All the stats are done. All the sheet about it. I just need to write the blurbs for my top 7 or 8 for those.
It takes longer to write the blurbs than it does to do all the stacking. But we're getting it.
Depends. Cornerback, edge, and wide receiver to an extent. I just threw my papers up in the air at least 3 times on all those.
Oh, you couldn't figure out the order?
I still can't. I could go back right now and I would change it.
It's that BJ Ojulari, Byron Young,
we talk about
Felix
bubbles.
Group. That's
we talk about bubbles, and it doesn't matter the position. You get to 3 or 4 guys, and they're really similar. And there's a lot of bubbles this year in those groups.
Yeah, or it's like, the big ends, the Miles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness, Keon White group. And I know some people are like, one of these things is not like the others. NFL teams like Keon White a lot. So
yeah, but I think that's even harder when you have 3 players who you feel are similarly graded but are very different, even though they're in the same position.
Yeah,
like they all get it done very differently. And it felt like there was a player like that to drop into a bunch of groups this year. Cansey was one of them for me. Like I'm going through defensive tackles and Cansey's there. He's a defensive tackle. Where are you going to put him? And you just sort of want to put him over.
Didn't have him in my mock.
I did.
And people were confused by that. And it's like, I can't find a spot. I can't.
He will be hard to resist. But there are players like that in several groups who are just different. There are some in receiver. There's a couple in running back, or the Deuce Vaughns of the world, or the Keaton Mitchells.
Mm-hmm.
Like one crazy skill. Where does he fit in these much more well-rounded options? Because he just has this one thing, but oh my God, the one thing is unbelievable.
Zubin Bashiri, $5. Thank you, Zubin. Thoughts on Riley Moss, the corner out of Iowa? Really like him on the Ravens. I want to try him at corner.
Yeah.
Because he's got good feet. He's got good hips. I think he's really technically developed. The one thing I'm not sure of is long speed. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like on tape, I'm waiting for that extra gear to hit after the first 3 steps out of a transition. And I don't quite think it's there.
Yeah.
Maybe with NFL strength and conditioning, not that Iowa's poor at that,
I was going to say.
It's Iowa. They're good at it. But I would like to try him at corner and see if he survives. And if we're not comfortable with him outside, move him to nickel. See if he's okay there, which he probably would be. Worst case scenario, he's a starting safety to me. I think he could make it as a starting safety. But I kind of want to just do the flow chart first of does he work here? Yes, no.
Cascade.
Does he work here? Yes, no. Because he's an NFL player. He should get a lot of snaps. I just don't know where yet.
Yeah. I see him as a rotational defensive back, and I use that term on purpose. He can play some nickel, especially against guys with size there. If you want a much deeper dive on Riley, go check out the Matt Bowen pod we just did. He was one of our draft handcuffs. Matt brought him up, and you pitched basically the same theory, and Matt was like, I like that a lot. So you want a little bit deeper dive on Riley, go check out that pod. He's an NFL player. I think he does get drafted. Question is where in a very deep class, because he does a bunch of good things well. But if you said, what's Riley's trump card? What's his one thing, his skill that he's going to hang his hat on?
Yeah.
Like this. I mean, he's good at a lot of things, but there isn't
tackling.
One thing. There isn't one thing that really distinguishes him. And I think that may cause him a little bit of a slide, not a huge slide. He's still going to get drafted. Probably my guess is end of day 2.
That's about where I'd start thinking
beginning
about it.
Of day 3. That's the range. He will get drafted. I think he'll be productive.
Yeah. Cody Gerard for $10. Thank you, Cody. Okay, I'll bite on your mock stream for the Giants. You talked about everything Trice does well. What doesn't he do well? Because if he did everything well, he wouldn't be a day 2 pick by most people.
Okay, MVP question.
It's a great question.
Great question.
And I will say, he's, for other people, not just me, he is seen as kind of the borderline day 1, day 2 range, right? The reason why he's not quite at like Deontay Banks or quite at Christian
the
Gonzalez.
reason he's not in the top 5.
He will bite.
Yeah.
Speaking of biting, he will bite.
Yes.
He's very aggressive. Very aggressive. He has some Asante Samuel in him, but he's big, obviously, where you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And I think that he will get taken advantage of early on in his career because of that, because he just wants to jump everything and get his hand on every single pass. And I think he is susceptible to double moves. I think he can get handsy, when he's playing chest to chest, and it's like, I get it. You're 6'3". Sometimes it can be tough to dial it back a bit against a 5'9". It's like, bro, you're going to get flagged every time. Like, cool it.
It looks bad.
Yes. It's like Deontay Banks, you're talking about him being over aggressive at times. Corey Trice is like more than that.
Yeah. And because he's big, the perception, and I mean, the visual perception of it is
he's just fucking mugging these guys.
Mugging that dude. Is he like handsier than we talked about another guy, Cam Smith, super aggressive corner, who's a little bit smaller, not a lot smaller. For some reason, I don't know. Do you ever get this perception you sort of place on a player before you watch him, and then you watch him and it's just not right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought Cam Smith was 5'10".
Yeah. No,
and
he's
then
not.
I got to Cam Smith and he's tall too.
Because he just looks.
Yeah,
he looks like
first time I watched Mozzie
like Clark
Smith.
Phillips. He looks like Clark Phillips. Yeah.
First time I watched Mozzie Smith, I would have said 290.
Yeah.
Because he's just so damn fast and he kind of disappeared for fully 323. Like, you just wrong. So, but Cam Smith, when he goes after a guy, it doesn't look the same as when Corey Trice with those long limbs is just beating the snot out of him. And he's going to get double moved into oblivion a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to happen. And you're going to see how he responds because it will happen. They will get him. And I've said this before and you've picked up on it, like being fast, and Corey Trice is very fast, can get you to the wrong place just as quickly as it does to the right place. And being fast and having that aggression and biting will get him to the wrong place. And by wrong place, I mean burn for a very long, gain or touchdown. And his DB coach is going to be like, see?
Yeah, the false sense of security that comes with 4.4 speed. Yeah.
Yeah. When you bite and you move at that speed, you're going the wrong distance just as far. So that's what he has to work on. But there are so many, Matt Bowen called them uncoachable traits: size, speed, aggression, good feel for the passing game. Like, he has so many of those that you're going to live with it and try and coach those bad habits out of him.
Yeah. DJ Dirty J for $5. Thank you, DJ. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
God.
Other than getting in on crypto? Appreciate you both do.
Getting out on crypto at the right time?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not just getting in, it's getting out at the right time. My younger self, one piece of advice. That's an interesting one. Because I've messed up a lot.
Yeah, there are many mistakes for both of us to choose from.
Oh, don't put the Jaws theme at the start of the Tevin Jenkins episode.
God. Oh, we weren't even that young when that happened.
But I was stupid.
Well, hey, we're still that. We're just trying to be less so. For me, it would be relax. We were just talking about this earlier. There's that Taurus piece in me. Fun fact, our birthdays are very close together. So it's amazing we haven't killed each other yet. But Brett knows this very well, as does my wife, as do lots of people in my life. There are certain things that I will put my teeth through the floorboards on, and it is very hard for me to let go of them. And some of those things are not just negatives that occur, but like positives. Like, I want things to happen faster. Brett will tell you all the time that I just want bootleg to be better, quicker. My patience for letting things play out isn't great sometimes, and it can be really counterproductive. And a lot of good things happen when you just wait. I just saw some clip of a roundtable, and Tom Hanks was talking to like 4 other actors, including like De Niro and whatever. And he was saying, they asked him a similar question, like, what would you have liked to have known as a younger actor? And he was like, just wait.
Yeah.
Time is your friend. It will work things out for you. And I was like, oh yeah. So that's probably mine.
I mean, I wasn't doing TV for 5 or 6 years, and making episodes on YouTube for multiple of those years and everything like that. And the patience to not leave TV until I was ready was what allowed me to develop the skill set to make YouTube work.
Yes.
And I think so many people put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And they just want to do the thing without having a plan to do the thing.
Yep.
And you got to have a plan. You got to have, and I'm, me, I'm a bad planner.
Yeah.
But like, I at least try.
I'm the plans of the operation.
And I think people, kind of, they get ahead of themselves on things rather than take a breath, think about things,
let it
map it out, sketch it out, have a plan.
So, and there are lots more. We could do 2 hours on just mistakes we made very easily off the cuff. No prep.
Also, put Pat Mahomes QB1. Like, that's what I would do.
Sure.
Xenocide for 1999. Thank you, Xenocide. Earlier you had the Lions pass Carter. Do you think they're completely out on him? If not, and they have concerns about him, would they take him just so that he doesn't terrorize them twice a year? I don't know if the Lions are one of the teams that are out on him. I know other teams are. I don't know if Detroit's one of them. I think they had him in for a visit.
I think most people that are in the top 10 had him in for a visit because it's due diligence. You want to see for yourself if you're going to even consider laying out that level of draft capital, like what you're getting. How is this young man reacting in a very difficult time? And Bill Zimmerman, who I mentioned on the pod, brought this up, and I thought it was a great point. These are people.
Mm-hmm.
Young people, like going through the draft process with everything going smoothly is crazy hard and really stressful. It's stressful on your body. You're flying all over the country. You're hearing all these rumors. If you don't shut off social media, your teammates are yapping at you. People are coming out of the woodwork. Your family, oh, you're going to be rich. Like, it's a lot for guys that are 20, 21, 22 years old. Then you throw in something like what happened to Jalen Carter. Friends of his died, lots of negative scrutiny on top of all the football stuff. And people are like, well, he wasn't focused for his pro day. I'm like,
I'm surprised he even went out there to begin with.
I'm like,
I credit him for doing it though.
Yeah. We have to remember that these are people, and that when we were that age, we didn't handle things particularly well, and they were nowhere near this stressful or public.
Yeah.
There are going to be times these guys don't do it right. So all the teams in the top 10 are going to want to have him in and say, how's he reacting? How's he handling this? What kind of person is he? What kind of player is he? Where is he at mentally? What are we getting in terms of all that? So I think they've all probably met with him. I don't know if they're one of the teams that's out. They may not be one of the teams that's in, and that's different, but the result is the same.
Yeah.
They're not going to pick him. Teams, for the most part, to answer your second part of the question, don't do that.
They decide just to keep.
They like him, they'll take him. And if they don't like him, they won't take him. It's not, oh, we need to keep him away from our neighbor, because then what kind of place does that guy have on your roster?
Yeah.
Right. This is the guy that's here, so he wouldn't be over there. That's a weird start. And draft capital is some of the most expensive capital there is, not just money wise, right? It's rare, and rarity makes it expensive. And you don't spend that just away from your neighbor.
The only time where that's sort of true when that happens, when people get in on something to keep it out of a rival's hands, would be like what's going on with D-Hop right now, where Arizona is just playing puppeteer, and they got the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs in a Mexican standoff. They're all pointing guns at each other like, we want him.
We're going to take him. They're like, great pay.
Because they're all going to face each other in January, and they really don't want Hopkins
on.
So like that's
so
like
trades, I would say yes.
Yeah.
And certainly like in division, like you're not going to trade an asset that you've already had on your team to a rival so he can beat you up. But in the draft, teams don't draft that way.
Yeah. Like the TJ Hawkinson thing was rare.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah.
Which ironically the Lions were also involved in that one too, but it's not a thing that happens super
well,
commonly.
The Lions were also completely comfortable doing that.
Yeah, which Hawkinson played well for Minnesota, by the way.
And
but
they
it was
knew
interesting.
He was going to play well,
yeah.
but they didn't need that in Detroit, and they were willing again to take an asset for it and say, we know he's going to play well in this way for you. We're cool with that.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to kill us. And that's why they did it.
Jeff Caldwell for $11 Canadian. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you, sir. I don't see. Oh, here we go. There was a question elsewhere, right next to it. Would you rather see AR or CJ go to the Colts? Personally, I'd rather AR based on upside. Also, if the Falcons don't take Bijan, do you think Dallas could take him? Seems like something Jerry would do. First of all, I agree with you. I would prefer. Well,
yeah, I was going to say, really? I'm thinking about that. I'm not sure.
I guess I'm so used to framing that question AR versus Levis that AR has always been my instinct. But I guess if it was AR versus Stroud,
yeah,
specifically for the Colts,
with the way their roster's constructed, that one makes it difficult.
It might actually favor Stroud.
I think it
like
does.
If we're talking Minnesota AR, if we're talking Indy, I might prefer Stroud.
I do prefer Stroud for now, and I don't think the and then is as different. Like people talk about Stroud being polished and ready to go, and they talk about like stopping, like he's never going to get better. Like if they think he's as good as Jared Goff is, right, let's say when he got to the Lions, they just think that's going to be his level and he's not going to improve past that, which is silly. Most players do show some improvement, certainly with exposure to NFL speed and everything else. So Stroud's better now in that fit in my mind right now, right this minute. He's going to give you a better chance to win with Indy's roster, and he's going to progress too.
Yeah.
Like he's not a bad athlete. He's not a, there isn't any reason to think that he won't get significantly better. Now, is there as much untapped potential as there is with AR? No, AR starting lower, but the ceiling's higher. So the variance is greater. But for right now, with a roster that's pretty ready to go, it has its holes, but it's not underdeveloped. Like Stroud could leverage that very nicely this minute.
I would posit that the answer to that question depends on how much you believe in Gardner Minshew. If you think they can get through an entire season with Gardner Minshew as a starter and be effective, then I think it's actually worth it to go the AR route, because that's why I like AR to Minnesota. Sure. Yeah. That's why I like AR to Minnesota, is because he can sit. If you don't think that Gardner Minshew is getting through 17 games, you go with Stroud.
I think he'd go through 8
before things go back to the way they were.
Well, before Gardner Minshew does what he's done in his last 2 stops when he's played significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Right. He looks really good for about 3 or 4 games. Then he looks okay for games like 5 and 6. And then like 7 and 8, you're like,
yeah.
This is why you want him as a spot starter, not a primary starter.
Which Stroud could be a primary starter, right? So it's a very, very fascinating question.
Yeah. Great questions tonight. Give yourself a round of applause. This is awesome.
Second part of it. If the Falcons don't take Bijan, do you think Dallas could take him? I think there's multiple teams before we even get to Dallas that would take Bijan.
My answer to the Dallas question is yes, they could take him. Yes, they would have to move up to do it.
Because I think they got to.
Yes, they might.
They might, because I think they know they'd have to get in front of the Chargers, because I think the Chargers are a perfect fit. Again, I'm not saying this is somebody who knows the Chargers would take Bijan. I'm just, if I was the Chargers.
Okay, secondary question.
What?
If Bijan's there.
Yeah.
And he's a perfect fit.
At 21.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the Chargers take him.
Yeah.
Where's Eckler go?
Who says they're still getting rid of Eckler?
I know they don't want to.
I'm just saying all the two-back stuff that they did with Zeke and Pollard.
They're going to turn up the pressure. Like Eckler's camp's going to turn up the pressure if they draft Bijan.
Probably, yeah. But
doesn't have any leverage, but they're going to turn up the pressure.
If they can just give Eckler more money, and then they, thank you for your service. You've been the most productive skill position player on our team. Here's some money.
By far.
Let's run all that crazy two-back shit Kellen was doing in Dallas with Zeke and Pollard on the field. Let's do that with Bijan and Eckler and have it be insane.
It'd be fun. I'd watch.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So again,
Right.
it requires
Good answer.
both guys coming together. But so no, to answer your question though, I don't think Dallas would get Bijan because I think
Not sitting where they are.
No.
I would be very surprised if that happened.
Yeah.
Somebody will pull the trigger before then.
Somebody will.
Yeah.
Will Manchester for $5. Thank you, Will. I've heard a few things about the Titans and Jalen Carter. Do you think there's any chance they trade up to 8 to pair him with Jeffrey Simmons? Good Lord.
No, that's the allure.
That would be insane.
I don't think. Here's why it's possible, and here's why it's not possible.
Okay.
Their new GM.
Yeah.
Where's he come from?
I don't know.
49ers.
Right.
What do the 49ers invest heavily in?
Defensive line.
Defensive line.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. High draft picks. Tons of more players have gone into the league in San Francisco's defensive line and gone elsewhere. The Brenton Buckners of the world and, everybody. So Rand Carthon comes into Tennessee and he's like, well, I know one blueprint for building a successful team. I'm going to beef the line. So that's why it could happen. Why I think it couldn't or wouldn't happen is that Tennessee has more needs than that.
They got 4 points.
They can't afford right now to be trading up for one defensive line superstar or not, and giving up additional assets to do that without a plan to recoup some, which would lend credence to the, hey, we're going to shop Tannehill. We're going to shop assets, right? We're going to send people away because we think we want to take a shot at this great defensive lineman, and we know it's going to cost some picks, but we need more picks overall when the wash is done. But they didn't get any bites on Tannehill. Nobody was willing to give anything up. Yeah. So I don't think they can afford it organizationally. Would it be fun in theory? Just like we were talking about with Bijan and Eckler pairing the superpowers of Simmons and Carter. Yeah, that would be a load. That would be no fun for opponents. Do I think it'll happen? Even if Rand Carthon wants it to happen, unless Carter takes a big slide. No.
Sheldon Wong for $10. Thank you, Sheldon. Some guys who have consensus draftable grades that you didn't mention in your draft board are Carrington Valentine, Cam Mitchell, Terrell Smith, Jalen Jones, Mekhi Garner. Any thoughts on those guys? I think those all fall under the ones that I have. I think it was in the document that I uploaded. I think I had a patch of names. Or maybe I think in the version that I uploaded, I think those guys were in the patch of names that I hadn't gotten to yet.
Yeah. Of those, well, they're all really good players, actually. Carrington Valentine might be the most interesting because he's been one of the least talked about. That is the most talented. Cam Mitchell is fascinating. I think Cam Mitchell, it's hard. He played at a major program. He's been there for a couple of years. He's really productive. Hard to call him a sleeper. Like nobody's talking about him. And he's one of those guys that's going to get picked in the 4th or the 5th.
Yeah.
Just because of the depth of this class. And he's going to go out and play really, really well.
These are like the pickup prospects that I got to do on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, Friday morning.
Watch Mitchell.
I know they're going to go.
Watch Mitchell. They're good. He's really good. Valentine is fascinating because I think he is good enough, like in all the sort of high point categories that would get a guy selected, but just sort of never picked up steam. And I'm not sure why that is. I have no background on why he wouldn't be more popular. He's had a little bit of a sort of blip here at the very end of the process within, I'd say, like the last 2 weeks. Terrell Smith, Jalen Jones. I mean, he's good, but again, he's good in the middle of a very good group of defensive backs. Jalen Jones, I like. Garner, again, we had a question earlier about Bernard Converse, Bernard Converse. Like he could be on this list. He would fit right in with these guys. They're all going to get picked.
Remember our conversation about you got to do 80 DBs?
Yeah.
To get through all of them.
They're all going to get picked.
Yeah.
I watched Mitchell. It was like And the days are blending together. I think it was like Saturday morning, like 10 o'clock. For some reason, he came across, and I was like, I'm just going to take 5 minutes and watch Cam Mitchell. And I was like, because of his name, like Cam Mitchell. It's like Jalen Jones. Like, these are hard names for me to remember. So I'll take a second and make a note that I'll have, when he gets picked. And I ended up spending like 15 or 20 minutes going, wow, like he's really solid. He played in a Power 5 conference against some really good receivers over his tenure, made some really good plays, seems very steady. And that's not a backhanded compliment. That's a quality I really like in a defensive back. Like, don't give up the big shit. Very, very solid player in a good way. And I just thought, wow, like nobody's said anything about Cam Mitchell. And he's got the resume, he's got the production, he's got size. Like, he's just a very good, solid DB. And
when we get back from KC Beer Co, I'm gonna watch him then.
Yeah, we should put him on the big screen.
Yeah,
we haven't thrown anybody up on the big screen in a while.
Well, when you land at 1:30.
No, I just mean this year. We even watched less folks on the big screen when we were at Shrine together.
Yeah, we gotta do that tonight.
Yeah, we should do that. It'd be fun.
Ben Chase for $2. Thank you, Ben. Thoughts on Aiden O'Connell's fit in Denver with Peyton? He's the exact type of quarterback Sean Payton loves.
Yeah, could definitely see that as a pairing. Like, they would love each other from they would shake hands at the podium when Aiden got off the plane, and they would be inseparable.
And he's just a pro. Like, he's a pro's pro. He's very accountable. He's smart.
He's very even keeled too.
Super even keeled. Like, is willing to talk about the highs and the lows, and he doesn't change his demeanor one way or another. When a mistake happens, he's like, fuck that up. All right, let's move on. And when a big play happens, he's like, yeah, it's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Like, he's got like this Eli Manning quality to him in that way.
He really does. And he doesn't get bumped off his stride very easily. And that is it's a nice quality to have in a leader.
Yeah.
Right. Is like, hey guys, house is burning down. We got some stuff to do. And he played from behind in a lot of games in college. He's very familiar with that. And also got to whoop up on people. And he's one of those guys, when he whoops up on people, it's because the receiver ran a good route. When he screws it up, it's because he made a terrible choice and he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, he'll take all the blame and none of the credit. And it's just a really good quality.
He played a lot of football, and you can tell. Sometimes we'll get a little bit too much dip on his chip, throw some bad picks, but he is aggressive. He will own it, but he is aggressive. And I like that he's willing to at least try.
My favorite thing about that is what he said about that. I wasn't supposed to be here in the first place.
Yeah.
I was a walk-on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to let it loose. What have I got to lose? I didn't have anything to start with. I was like,
yeah. He's a good guy. I like him.
Good player.
Matt Bramwell for 220 Canadian. Thank you, Matt. Odds Keanu Benton is at pick 56 for the Jaguars.
Ooh, not good.
Not super great.
Possible, but not good unless there's something going on we don't know about. I would say he's top 50.
Yeah, some weird stuff would have to happen.
Yeah,
for him to get to 56.
Too good for that. But barely. We're not talking about he's going to be gone by 30. He might be gone by 30, but I don't think so. Right? I would say by 50, or almost at the end of the second round, if he's not off the board yet. Yeah, he slipped. If it's like, it's possible. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but I would be starting to wonder, what are people worried about? Because there's a lot of really good stuff with that player.
Once you get to like 45, if he's still on the board, that's when I make a call. Because I could reasonably see him getting to 45.
If my team needs him, and he's there, I'm getting antsy. I'm like, can we do it? Can we do it? Because he's gonna play early.
And there's not very many of him in this class.
Right? There's very few.
Vincent Batten for $5. Thank you, Vince. If Branch is gone before 24, how do the Jags best address Nickelback in the draft? Luckily for them, there's a million.
I was going to say, they have fallback position after fallback position. You could list one per round as a really good fit that's likely to be in that round and go through the fourth or fifth round.
It's like, if they don't get Brian Branch, okay, they're getting Quan Martin or Sidney Brown in the second. If they don't get those guys, we're looking at Keitrell Clark in the third.
Yep.
If we don't get those guys, let's see, who's Quindell Johnson in the fourth, which he's more of a safety, but he plays nickel. Like, we get down to Star Thomas in like the fifth and sixth. There's options every single round. They don't have to take nickel first round, and that's what I'm trying to tell folks.
It's one of the best misses they could have.
Yeah,
right. Like, Branch is a perfect Offensive tackle, there are 5, 6, maybe 7 guys, depending on how you feel about it. And then there's a drop. And then you're picking your flavor of developmental. Defensive back, you just go and go and go. Inside guy, outside guy, big guy, slot guy, power guy, like man, press, zone. Here's your options. There's 15. Pull a card.
So I want to apologize to the chat because the trackpad on Mac, I guess if you move your finger a certain way, it sends you back a page.
Oh,
so it took us out of the stream for about 10 seconds. Just for me moving my finger to the left.
So your super-powered Mac is not helping for once?
Here's the problem. It got rid of all the comments I had stacked up.
Oh, not good.
All the super chats. So
that's not good.
I still have some super chats I have on the screen, but if we missed yours because of this issue, please repost them, or at worst, because we only have about half hour left before we have to get to KC Beer Co. At worst, I would encourage you to please DM me, because I saw some questions that I had queued up that were really, really good, and now I can't find them because fucking Apple.
You flipped your finger around too fast.
That's
Here
really
we are,
annoying.
flipping fingers.
Right.
We didn't think we'd be here on day 1 of the draft.
But I do have this one for Brian Johnson for $10. Thank you, Brian. Thank you guys for all the knowledge. Really appreciate it. What is your dream player to team match in the draft if you could make it happen?
Ooh, there's a lot. There's several, I should say.
Zay to the Chargers, JSN to the Patriots. Just because I think in that Bill O'Brien offense, he'd be amazing. And Zay to the Chargers just because I really want to cover him.
He didn't say why.
I know, yeah.
He just said which.
Bijan to Atlanta, just because behind that offensive line, it would be ridiculous.
Me, it's Bijan to the Cowboys.
Keep him in Texas.
Come on.
Yeah.
Cowboys running back, the history of Cowboys running backs, he goes from Austin to Dallas. Like, that's such a Jarrah move. I know, I realize Jarrah is not running the personnel department. Steven's been doing it for a long time, but that would feel like, I mean, we went to our first game in AT&T last year, and that place when Bijan came running out,
the Palace, man,
dude, they would go bananas,
just like Austin did.
Yeah,
when he gets on the field, like you just see 100,000 Texans just swooning over the kid.
Yeah, no, just for that alone, he'd fit so well on so many teams.
I also think Tyree to the Seahawks is a dream fit, just because he's got so many Seahawky traits, right? And with BT Jordan, I think they could turn him into something really special there.
There's a lot of people in Seattle that are, I don't know if they just haven't really watched him. They feel like they didn't get Will Anderson, and they're not going to get Jalen Carter because and so Tyree feels like this consolation prize, and I'm like, he's not.
He's not.
He's really good. You're gonna love him. Just like all the guys that we had last year. Like, I was a huge Tariq Woolen supporter. He was one of my gems, and then he went, and everybody was like, "Well, you talked about this guy. Is he any good?" And I was like, "He's not just like any good." Like, and he went on to have an even better season. I'm trying to think about any other fits. I'm trying to think about like lineman fits.
John Michael Schmitz to Chicago.
John Michael Schmidt to Chicago would be awesome. Tippmann to Chicago would be awesome too, depending on if they think he's better in outside zone. This is a weird category, but this is what happens when you've been immersed in the draft process for way too long. Player from this year's draft that would be a fit for a team if they hadn't picked the exact same position last year. And for me, it's John Michael Schmitz to the Ravens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, but they picked Tyler Linderbaum.
So they don't need him,
but they already have him. But like, if they didn't, like, JMS to the Ravens would be like, that would be such a chalky pick this year. And it's just not, because they already picked it.
Matthew Wright, this is about missed super chats. Mine was about center. I'm not on Twitter, so I can't DM. Speaking of
center's deep.
This is one of the better center classes I can remember for a while, because you have JMS at the top, who's an elite zone blocker. You got Joe Tippmann, who, despite his size, and Brandon Thorne brought this up, he's got kind of a Mitch Morse profile where he's like 6'6", but he's weirdly really good at pulling in space. Joe Tippmann and JMS are going to go right next to each other in the second round, most likely.
Yep, they're going to be joined at the hip.
I think Ricky Stromberg has gotten so much disrespect, and I think
He's
he's
getting buzz of late, though, and I'm happy about it.
but he's going to go so much higher than he's going to go in the third round. I truly believe that. And he's just an ass kicker of a center, calls his own protections, just blows people off the ball in the run game. Outside zone, inside zone, doesn't matter. He's so damn good. Juice Scruggs, another center we saw at Shrine Bowl with guard versatility as well. More quick than Ricky Stromberg, not as strong. So different flavor of the same thing. But again, he's going to be a guy who goes in the fourth round probably and gets snaps early. Trying to think who else we got in the center class.
Luke Weipler.
Yep.
Ohio State. Really, really good.
Yep.
Like super steady. So he's not getting talked about because he doesn't have highs and lows, either physically or skill set wise or play style. Like he is so steady and good steady.
Yeah.
Like both his run and his pass grade are really good. You very rarely saw him miss on an assignment. He went to the combine. He performed better as an athlete. Again, above average there as well. He's like above average across the board, but everything's level. So like nobody's talking about Luke Weipler. You already mentioned Tippmann, Stromberg, Scruggs, two more, Olusegun Oluwatimi from Michigan.
Yep.
Who is, dude called him out as, he didn't even call him out by name. He's like, dude, this 55 guy is just so good at all this pin and pull stuff. He's really good. And I'm like, yeah, that's Oluwatimi. He's really good. And again, like Weipler, tons of experience in the Big Ten, just not getting talked about, even though he played on one of the best lines in the entire country. The fact that there's so many centers that a guy like that would normally be like the third center off the board isn't even getting mentioned. And then the last one I want to talk about is the opposite of Weipler. Like if Weipler's up here and just level across the board, Alex Forsyth from Oregon is this.
Peaks and valleys.
Right.
Yep.
Forsyth is the best pass protecting center in this draft. Like,
I don't know. JMS is a dog, but
the JMS is, I would say, a different style and better all the way across the board.
Yeah.
Forsyth's up here on pass protection and run blocking. He's like down here. So if you're a team that passes like 70% of the time,
Chiefs, they already got Creed, but like,
well, right. You're picking
yeah.
Alex Forsyth as a backup center and being really comfortable with him. If you need him to start, probably not, just because he needs to level out consistency wise and get some run blocking ability in there. But it's just one of those guys that's wildly talented, has this huge peak, and then like the rest of it's not up to average, but still it's hard. It's like the one trick ponies, right? It's very rare that an offensive lineman is a one trick pony, though. Forsyth is.
So his question was, why is it that center seems like a very important position with extra responsibilities, yet they're never drafted high or receive large contracts? Truthfully, I don't know.
Yeah, centers would ask the same question.
I really don't know.
This is the same thing when people start talking about tight end over the last 3 years, largely because of things like Tight End University and just tight ends being more vocal about it. And then guys like Travis Kelce, leading the league in receiving. And you're like, why do tight ends get paid a lot less than wide receivers when they produce just as much or more? The tight ends are like, and we have to block. Like, I don't know. You tell me. And centers are the same way. Like, hey, we've got to hold everything together. We're drafted lower. We're not looked upon as highly, but if you ask our offensive line coaches which order they would kick us to the curb in, I'm always either last or second to last.
Yeah, it's left tackle and center. Yeah, because they call protection. So run games literally can't function without a good one.
Yeah,
it's just I really don't know why the market dictates it like that. It's dumb to me. It's just dumb. There's no other way to describe it.
Yep.
Mine was about why the Levis hype was so loud.
For what?
For him going to like 2 or 1.
Because people want it to be. People want it to be.
Yeah.
Levis is a polarizing player, but he has very high highs on tape. When Levis puts it all together, it looks beautiful. It looks amazing. Like his on plays are right up there with Bryce Young's or TJ Trice. He just doesn't do it as often. And he just has all the qualities physically that people want to develop quarterbacks with. But they don't all come together. And there are some questions about mental consistency and sort of, I don't even know how to phrase that. There's just, you're not going to get it as often, or there's farther to go until you do.
Yeah.
But people want it so bad. They're like, but did you see the throw off his knees? And they're like, don't.
It doesn't matter.
You don't want to be, if there's a quarterback you don't want to be like, it's Kyle Buller. So don't do that.
Yeah.
But people just want it to be like, he is a quarterback prototype. He is big. He is strong. He's got a big arm. He can run. He's tough as nails. He can take punishment. He's got sort of all the qualities, and people just want that to gel and work. And sometimes people just try and will it to happen, pun intended.
Finn Stolten for €6. Wait, yeah, euros, right? Yeah, euros. Thoughts on Emmanuel Forbes? Seen him mocked to the Ravens a lot, and I don't really understand why people like him. Cheers. Oh man, how much time we got? Forbes is like CB12 for me, like something in that. I have him, I think, as a tier 4 corner.
Yeah, he's in my all-star group, like just outside the top corner.
He's going to get drafted like he's a tier 2 corner.
Yeah.
And I don't see it. I don't see it. I get the ball production, 14 picks, like 3 pick sixes last year, 14 picks over the last 3 years. Crazy ball production. And I think ball skills he's got. Incredible ball skills. Some of the best ball skills I've seen for a corner in quite some time. If the ball gets near him, he's going to catch it. Here's the problem. A lot of the picks that he got were on plays where he got beat.
Yeah, he was burned.
And it was a bad throw, or it got tipped by a linebacker, and he's, he'll reach back and he'll make like a one-handed grab off a tip ball, and we're like, holy shit, that's amazing. And then you realize, like, wait a minute, the receiver had 3 yards of separation. That's not good. Will NFL quarterbacks miss that throw? Probably not.
Not
right?
that badly.
He'll get absolutely flamed off the line of scrimmage. And was it Arkansas, right? I think it was the Arkansas game. And he's like 3 or 4 yards behind, and the ball gets underthrown in the end zone, and he picks it off. And I'm like, he fucking lost on the route. And the quarterback threw a bad ball. And it's like, we look at the picks and we think, oh, he's going to get so many turnovers in the NFL. Not like that.
Yeah, this is the poster child case. I'm not saying poster child player, but a poster child case for tape versus statistics. Because if you look at the statistics, you go, oh my God, how is he not a top 5 corner? Just period. And you go and you look at the tape, and we have the access this year, and we went and we watched all of those interceptions. And there are a good number of them. When I said earlier about Clark Phillips, he had some of the highest quality interceptions in this class. When you look at his interceptions, because he's running the route for the receiver.
Yeah.
He's undercutting it. He's anticipating a break and being there first. That's earning an interception. A lot of Forbes's interceptions were what I would call unearned. There's one, I think it's against South Carolina, and it's a dig. It's a dig to the outside, right? And he gets burned at the break point, right? At the top of the stem, he gets run off, and there's a good 2.5 yards of separation. I mean, it's college open, it's wide ass NFL open, right? And the quarterback basically throws it to the break point when the guy was going to the sideline.
Yeah.
And so Forbes is still lagging 3 yards behind the receiver who's already broken for the ball. And he basically throws it right at him. And yeah, he's got great hands. He will catch it if you throw it at him.
But he threw it to him.
He threw it right to him, although he was burned. And you're like, so am I going to give him credit? There are times when intuition takes you to the right place, and then you make good on a favorable tip. A lot of Forbes' ball production was not that. He is very good against the run, surprisingly so at his frame type. He's spindly. There's no other way to put it. He's 166 and 6'1" or something.
Yeah, he's like 6'1". He's super small.
Yeah, but he will stick his nose in as if he was 186. He is unafraid in the run game, and I appreciate that quality. It's something that will help him in the league, and I think that's what's propelling some of this. If he didn't have that, but I don't see the heights of where people are taking him.
I think, the main quote unquote earned pick that people point to is the one against Kentucky, where they threw a screen. He picked off a screen.
Yeah.
Because he read it and he drove on it and
Yep.
took it back to the house. And that was an incredible play. And everybody's like, look, see, he can do that. And I'm like, yes, he read a shield screen. That was amazing. Great read, great play. What about the other ones?
Yeah. Show me the rest.
Show me the rest.
Not what he does once, but what he does often. And what he does often doesn't scream to me high pick, especially in this class with so much cornerback talent specifically. But we believe he will be taken pretty high, surprisingly high.
Yeah.
And we have some confidence in that. And it will be one of those swoon picks when we're on the stream. Like people will be like, "Oh, I can't believe it." And we'll be like,
yeah.
Even if it's not the team we heard, if it's anywhere around there, it's like at that level, that's close to where we heard. Some NFL teams really love him. Really love him.
Joseph Kavanaugh, my super chat was deleted with polls showing a preference for hometown dudes, TJ Edwards, Tanyan, etc. Which Illinois natives could/should the Bears draft any round? Skoronsky counts, right?
Yeah, Chicago kid.
Van Ness, was he Illinois or was he just over the border? I can't remember.
I'm terrible to answer this question because I don't know where they came from. I'm not familiarized with the vast majority of college players until they're in college. And usually these days at their last college, like I'm the one that learns like, oh, he was at Louisville for 3 years and now he's here. That's my one degree of separation. And then you go, where did the kid go to high school? I'm out. That's 500,000 kids. I can't keep up. So I don't know who all the Illinois natives are. I mean, I know Skoronsky grew up a Chicago Packers fan, but
there we go. I did get it right. Van Ness went to Arb Mays High School in Chicago. I thought he was a Chicago kid.
Seems right.
Yeah.
I just don't know all the possibles. Are those both good players? Yeah. I think we talked about it earlier with Deonte Banks. It's cool. Bijan, not necessarily hometown, but college hometown. You get to stay close, keep a fan base. Strangely enough, this is draft trivia for all of you out there. The Panthers have never drafted a player from Clemson.
In 100 years? Well, Panthers haven't been around for 100 years, but
I was like, wait a minute.
In 40 years?
Yeah, they've been around a long time. Yeah. The Panthers have never drafted a Clemson player.
How?
That's the thing, right? It's one of the closest relationships.
There's so many of them.
Yeah, great players, good program, super close geographically. It's just one of those oddities of the NFL draft.
Or like the Saints would just refuse to draft LSU players.
Well, I mean, and the Seahawks have drafted Huskies and certainly Cougars. But I think it gets overrated a little bit, the hometown thing. I think it's actually more impactful later in a guy's career in free agency. You're bringing guys back. Yeah. Right. And they either played college ball there or they're from there and they can move back later in their career, a couple of years to wind it down. They can be close to family. A lot of times, if they have kids, they're close to grandparents at that point. I think that has a greater impact than like the drafting of like, oh, you get to stay home or you get to go home. It's a nice story, but I don't think it figures in as much as a lot of people think it might.
Yeah. There we go. Sent a super chat about the possibility of Jax packaging a pick with Josh Allen to move up if a star pass rusher falls. More interested in whether you would move him or pay him like a star next contract. I'm still kind of wait and see mode with Josh Allen. Yeah. I'm not ready to move him.
The weird thing is I'm not ready to do either.
Yeah.
If you played a game where you had to move him or pay him and there was no neutral, you couldn't just
we got to see what this season does. Yeah.
Right. I don't know what I would answer because my answer is let it ride. And if let it ride's not an option, I feel like I'm just throwing a dart. right? Because you could move him and he could be awesome, or you could pay him and he couldn't produce. And I don't feel like you don't that we have enough information to do that or not do that yet.
Yeah, no, we need another season for it. Octave Chemical Drive for $10. Which team picking quarterback is providing the best developmental situation? I'd say the Colts personally. Also, the older prospect going to be more common going forward with college players getting money now. Second part first, yes, probably, because there are guys
Yes, for sure.
that otherwise would have come out because of financial incentive to take care of their family, or there's a lot of kids in college that have kids of their own, right? And we talk to them every year, and like they have a family to provide for, and that's a big incentive for going to the NFL is to get that kind of money, because even the minimum is like you're making six figures, right? If you're getting NIL and you're a star at Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
And you're like a guy who like might go in the 5th or 6th round or something like that. But you need to get another year in college, but you're at Tennessee, so you're going to get taken care of. You can do another year of college and take care of your family with, or Texas is probably a better example. Every single offensive lineman on the roster, doesn't matter if they're playing or not, is making $50K a year.
Yep.
A lot easier to stay in school if you're making $50K a year. So yeah, there will be more, it's good for Galco and Jim Nagy. There's going to be more seniors than ever, because guys don't have to come out if they don't absolutely want to, right? So yeah, that's good for college football, in my opinion. As for which team picking quarterback is providing the best developmental situation, does Minnesota count? Because they got a good offensive head coach. They got Justin Jefferson. They got 2 great tackles. Does that count? I think it does.
I think it does. I think what we have to take into account in this particular situation is with Indianapolis. He said, I'd say Colts personally. I like what they have in terms of talent, but I don't think you can underestimate. They just changed staffs.
Yeah.
Right. And staff change in an NFL building is tumultuous. And there are things they have to figure out. We saw it with the Eagles. They did it probably as well as anybody. I mean, Sirianni's staff in their first year was crazy effective.
Yeah.
Certainly more so than we thought they were going to be. So it's possible, again, coming from that, tree, that they learned those lessons and know how to hit the ground running quickly. But I don't think it's a thing. And that, honestly, that's 2. And that's why they're picking quarterback, right? Frank Reich going from the Colts to Carolina is the same thing. Matt Rule is out of the building, and there's a shift. I think most everyone assumes that's a positive shift. And look, Reich's been around the league a while, so he's got a little bit of a head start. But if you're talking about Arizona, you're talking about the Colts. I mean, not that Arizona's in the quarterback market, but all these teams with a shift at the top of the power structure, it's an adjustment. Yeah. And not all teams do it as well as Sirianni and his staff did it in the first year.
Luke F for $5. Thank you, Luke. Don't mind super chatting again. Appreciate that. Really, truly, I do. What players have the biggest range of realistic landing spots, whether it be size, positional character, etc.? Kalijah Kancey. You could tell me he's going to the Eagles at 10. You could tell me he's going at 40. I would believe you either way.
Which is weird because I think he has one of the most narrow positional ranges and the widest.
He is one thing positionally.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that's going to go.
Right. But it could go. It's so good. You talk about a trick, and it's not just one thing. But again, the way he plays, so funny. Typically when we're saying, oh, we don't know where a guy's going to land, it's because they're like Brian Branch. Yeah. Because they can do everything. It's like, well, he could go here and play nickel. He could go here and play outside if he needed to. Go here and play safety for sure. Like, so I don't know where he's going to go. It's like Kancey does one thing. I don't know, be a penetrating 3-tech pain in the ass at an extremely high level. And it's like, well, who can't use that? Like, there are a few teams that like behemoths on their defensive line that probably aren't considering him.
Yeah.
Other than that, like,
you can kind of fit him anywhere.
Yeah, it's just a value concern.
Will Levis, I think, has a huge range. He could go 4. He could go not in the first round.
Yeah, and I think there's equal cases for both.
Equal cases.
If we were cutting odds for that.
Hendon Hooker. I got no idea where he's going.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tennessee, Jalen Hyatt, got no idea where he's going.
Yeah, people aren't going to wait on him eventually, though. Somebody's going to pull the trigger because they always pull the trigger on the fast guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care if it's John Ross or like, there's always, and I think to be fair, Hyatt is better than John Ross was coming out. But it's the old, Al Davis thing with the Raiders, right? Speed.
Yeah.
Can't teach it. Want deep speed. Scares people. Like, so somebody will just pull the trigger. They'll be like, nope, we got him. Buckle up.
I would say Dalton Kincaid, just because different teams are going to see the medical differently. So that
just makes me sad.
That could be.
I'm so sad that that's a consideration. It's true, but it just makes me so sad because he's incredible.
Player. He's incredible. Like all health checking out. He's probably going to the Packers at 13.
Yeah, no, he's an awesome player, and the fact that guys, like, it happens every year. Guys get hurt. We talked about JL Skinner tearing a pec in training. There are medical concerns about Sean Tucker, medical concerns about Dalton Cade, and a lot of other players. But if they're these sort of preeminent players, really talented players that are going to be drafted in the first 2 to 3 rounds, and that's not going to happen for them because of health, it always just bums me out.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a bunch of guys where it's like a 30 to 40 pick range, and it's for different reasons and different factors.
Yeah.
Toloco Badger for $10. Could the Raiders utilize the tools of Richardson properly and turn him into that super weapon quarterback? Asking as a down bad Raiders fan, not looking forward to Jimmy G. Yes, they could. It will take time.
Yeah.
Because again, Richardson's very inexperienced, and the Raiders offense, their version of the Earhart Perkins, takes a long time to learn.
And they're not, how do I say this? They don't flex a lot with it.
It's interesting because it's a flexible system, but they don't adjust the flexible system.
They don't, they don't flex to the player very much. The system itself has a lot of flexibility for a player in it. But in terms of their roles and requirements, they're fairly rigid. And I feel like that works against the spirit of your question. Can they? Sure. Given that approach through time, unless they change it pretty radically, are they likely to? It's like possibility versus probability. It's possible. Is it probable? I'd say the probability is lower than a lot of other places.
And I think it's like publicly available on the internet. Well, I don't know if publicly is the right way to describe it. It's available on the internet. And I have Josh McDaniel's playbook on this laptop right now. And I've gone through it and I've read it and I've studied it. It's dense.
There's a lot.
It's very dense.
Lots of option routes.
So it will take a long time for any quarterback or receiver to learn it, let alone somebody who's played not as much football like Anthony Richardson. So again, would just take time. Jonathan Peck for $20. We're gonna wrap it up here because we have to go to KC Beer Co.
Oh yeah, if we're late to our own party, they're not going to appreciate that.
They will be very upset with us if we're late. So unfortunately, this will be our last question. Again, if we missed yours or if it got deleted earlier, please reach out to me on Twitter or send me an email at brett.a.coleman, that's KOLLMANN at gmail.com. You can email me, you can tweet me, you can hit me on Instagram, whatever way works best for you. I'll answer your questions if we happen to miss them. Jonathan Peck for $20. With Washington possibly drafting corner at pick 16, I might have a feeling that they might draft a tight end between rounds 2 to round 4. Question for you: what TE do you think they will draft in the mid rounds and works well in that system? So with Eric Bieniemy, there's so much flexibility with how EB used tight ends in Kansas City because he had Travis Kelce, obviously.
Yeah.
I would want somebody who has the ability to play in the slot, the ability to work in the backfield, the ability to split out wide, like a very much on the receiver side of the tight end spectrum, more so than the run. Like, I don't think he's as interested in Darnell Washington as he would be interested in the Old Dominion kid.
Zach Kuntz.
Yeah, just for tools and tools and
I
tools.
got a different one for you.
Who?
Tucker Kraft.
Oh, just a big motherfucker. Get
Yeah,
out
but
in space.
he can run.
Yeah, he really can. That would make sense a lot too.
Yeah.
It
would be more vertical elements than Bieniemy used. Bieniemy liked the horizontal likes currently the horizontal elements with the tight end game. Tucker Kraft would be more the like, we saw it last year with a guy out of UCLA. Went to Denver. The tight end.
Oh, Moose.
Yes.
God.
I knew you were going to say Moose, and I didn't want to throw it off. Anyways, going to be a more vertical element at tight end with Tucker Kraft. Went to South Dakota State, for those of you not familiar. Jackrabbit. Great colors, great mascot, but can get vertical down the seam and haul in receptions. Can really move for his size. Has good size, is not one of those undersized tight ends. And then kind of going the other way, it would be so if you have like Washington has big athletic tight ends. That's been their developmental type.
Yeah.
Like the guys they've taken chances on are these big athletic tight ends.
Toolsy.
Yeah, super toolsy tight ends. The other one would be smaller, still somewhat toolsy, but not as much as people make it out to be. That Sam Laporta.
In terms of getting somebody who on those crossing routes can just run.
Yeah.
Run.
And that would be TE2 as the more receiving option, almost H-backy. But really plays much more on the line, split out wide, doesn't spend a lot of time in line. People say, oh, he went to Iowa, he must be able to block. He's actually not really
not
good.
George Kittle.
He's not really good at blocking. He's okay, but he is good at running routes, especially those crossing routes. I think about what Bieniemy did early in his career with KC.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird to say Sam Laporta would be running some Tyreek Hill routes, but Sam Laporta would be running some Tyreek Hill routes.
In terms of those crossing routes, yes.
Right, because they're going to line up either a slower safety or possibly even a will, and he's going to outrun those guys. And you're going to get the same kind of result as opposed to a nickel corner on Tyreek.
I would also say Musgrave would be at the top of the list for me for that role too.
Oh, if they want to invest.
If they really want to just hit it,
they want to go up high and maximize sort of athletic traits and get a guy that can really block because he's big and strong. Having seen that guy up close, like he is put together. That would be a sort of high investment. Like, we're going to feature this guy.
Yeah. That's the round 2 one, not the round.
Yeah. That's the
3 one,
sort of high round 2 one.
Yeah.
For sure.
But they got options. They got plenty of
options. A lot of options in this draft at tight end.
All right. There again, if we missed your super chat or if you have any other questions, either hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, or email me at brett.a.coleman@gmail.com and we'll get your question answered. We are going to run over to KC Beer Co. right now here in Kansas City. We're going to get there by 7 o'clock. So if you guys are in the area, you want to come drink some beers with us, talk football, please do. We're going to be there for a few hours.
Yeah.
And if you're coming tonight, we'll see you there.
Take care. Happy Draftsmas Eve.